Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322. In this video is going to show the fastest fully upgraded vehicles in the GTA Online Sports Classics class in terms of top speed. As always, the position counter is in the top left with the actual top speed the vehicle achieved in the top right, and for this 2020 series I'll be showcasing the non-raceable vehicles first. So even though, for example, the Deluxo is in the Sports Classics class and has the highest top speed overall, since it can't be used in regular Sports Classic races, it's not going to be included in the main list. We start the regular raceable vehicles list with the Fagaloa in 38th place overall. This video only focuses on straight line performance, so if you're interested in racing where braking, cornering and acceleration are all relevant, check the link in the description for the lap time testing series. And if you want to know more information about this testing, including the extent to which it's accurate and how useful it is for you personally, have a read of the full description as everything that you need is in there. This video lists all vehicles and is correct as of the Casino Heist update. For any Sports Classics cars added after that or other classes of cars, check the playlist linked in the second line of the description, and feel free to check out my Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to support this work and get testing results of any new cars a little bit early. So here we are with the Sports Classics class in terms of top speed, and the three subclasses that we saw from the lap time testing video aren't really present when it comes to top speed. There's a much larger mix and much more diversity when it comes to the cars and the listing for top speed than there was for lap time, because we've got quite a few older style Sports Classics cars. I'm not talking about these very first cars that we see, you know, the Peyote, the Manana, the Tornadoes, things like that. They're just slow regardless, so we're not going to see much of a difference in terms of their position in the overall list from lap time to top speed. But when it comes to sort of the old top Sports Classics cars that we used to race with before we got the new breed that I was talking about would be considered more super classics, they're really, you know, Sports Classics because of their traction in the corners. They don't have an awful lot of grip, but they have surprisingly high top speeds. So as we get towards the end of this list, we are going to see some cars that you might not expect mixing it up with this, you know, so-called Super Classics class. So it's an interesting mix, the Sports Classics, certainly for top speed, and obviously the Ardent is still shafted when it comes to this. Something that I should have mentioned in the lap time testing video when we talked about the fact that the Ardent can't be raced when it should be is the Silvestre and the Viserys. Both the Silvestre and the Viserys also have guns, just like the Comet Safari, which is what I mentioned, and they are in the Sports Classics class just like the Ardent is, and they can be used in races even when they have guns, because those guns just get disabled in races. Unfortunately, the Ardent doesn't get that same treatment and isn't allowed to race at all. So it's kind of, you know, three very similar vehicles, but they're treated differently, which is a bit of a shame. The same is true of the Deluxo, of course, which, if it was to be raceable, would have the highest top speed of all raceable Sports Classics cars. Just like the Vigilante and the Supercars class, it is still top of the class for top speed, but it can't be used in regular races. You know, you can only use it in Transform or Special Vehicle races, the Deluxo. So it's stuck at the front of this list with the other non-raceable vehicles. Now, coming back to the raceable vehicles list, we're into the top 20 now, and we've got three vehicles that are exactly the same in terms of top speed, with the Stinger GT, and the Sterling GT as well, which the Sterling GT's weakness was always its top speed, even though it could corner quite well. And just in case you don't know, when we have vehicles that have exactly the same top speed, they are separated in terms of their position by their lap time. So the car that has the quickest lap time will get the higher position over the car that has the slower lap time. That's why the Sterling GT gets the higher position over the two Stingers. But as we come into the top 20, we do see a decent jump in terms of top speed. We had 112 miles per hour for the Stingers and the Sterling, 113.8 for the Zion Classic here, and then when we get to 17th place, that's where we see the top speed start to ramp up a little bit for the Sports Classics class. With the Retinue, first of all, in 17th place, 116.5 miles per hour for a top speed. We're starting to get into the levels of top speed that you would sort of see from the sports class in general. These are very respectable top speeds. You know, you're not going to be feeling like these cars are going slowly in a straight line when you're using them. And we see a lot of more modern sports classics cars that have been added to the game lately, like the Torero there for example, having this sort of top speed. But the difference that we see with this listing in comparison to the lap time version of this video is that we've also got older vehicles in there as well, like the Mamba here with a top speed of 117, and then we mixed it in with the Silvestre here for 14th place that's also 117 miles per hour. So we've got old style vehicles that can't get around the corners very well, still having a respectable top speed, and that's what always made the Sports Classics class so much fun. Taking a Coquette Classic that has 118 mile per hour top speed but has pretty bad brakes and not a very good cornering ability to, you know, keep that top speed in check is what made the class so much fun to drive and a challenge to race with. But then obviously these sort of more grippy Sports Classics cars have come along, like the Infernus Classic, that have the high top speed that the old cars did, but they can also get around the corners pretty quickly. So the challenge is lost a little bit and they just become more like normal sports cars basically. So we got 11th place with the Swinger here, and then we're coming on to the top 10. This is where the JB700 falls and where the JB700W would also fall if it was raceable. Like I said before, the JB700W is just a carbon copy of the regular JB700, except that it's got weapons on it, so in terms of performance it's exactly the same. And we're up to 119.3 miles per hour for a top speed, and that's very, very good. You know, these are some really quick top speeds. Certain supercars, you know, the bottom end of the supercars list, the vast majority of sports cars are all getting these same top speeds as well. So for the Sports Classics class to do that is pretty impressive. So we got the Rapid GT Classic in 9th place with 119.8, and then we're up to the Casco for 8th place, breaking that 120 mile per hour, well, equaling the 120 mile per hour barrier, I guess, exactly. So now we're, you know, you can kind of see how the different cars are mixed in. But similarly to what we saw with the supercars for top speed, it always seems to be that, you know, in terms of lap time, there's one or two vehicles that are far and away ahead of the rest. But the reason for that is because they have all the good features that really, you know, high level lap time cars would have, but they also have the top speed to back it up. I'm mainly thinking about the Krieger and the Emirates. You know, those are far and away the quickest for the supercars class for lap time, and then you bring them into their top speed and they also have very, very respectable top speeds as well to back it up. They were in sort of 6th and 7th place for the supercars class there, and we see the same sort of thing here for the Sports Classics class. The Turismo Classic and the Cheetah Classic, you know, they're at the top end of the lap time testing video, and they also have the top speed to back it up, which further shows how good they are. Turismo Classic with 120.8, Cheetah Classic just a little bit less, in 5th and 6th place overall for the class for top speed, just underlines their great performance overall for Sports Classics races. But we're coming into the top 5 now. Obviously the Turismo Classic was in 5th place, and then in 4th place we've got a very old car with the Pigali, one of the early DLC vehicles that we got. 121.5 miles per hour for its top speed is very impressive, but we're not done quite yet. That would, you know, get it well into the top third of regular sports class cars for top speed, but we've still got quite a bit of improvement to go for the final few vehicles. So in 3rd place we do have the Monroe, which is a wonderful car to drive. It's not got very good brakes, it can't turn either very well. You know, in terms of lap time, you're not going to be beating any sports cars anytime soon, but 122 mile per hour is a really, really respectable top speed, and it's kind of the perfect example of an old style Sports Classics car that is a challenge to drive because it can't brake and it can't turn, but it has a really high top speed, which makes it a great challenge to drive. 2nd place, we've got a relatively new vehicle with the Viserys. This was at one time bugged when it first released, and you could get this car up to, I think it had like 140 miles per hour for its top speed, just standard, and then you could brake the back end and stance it and it would be going, you know, 170, 180 miles per hour. Since it's been fixed, it's got a top speed of 124.3, which is still very, very high and very respectable, and on the right track could be used effectively. But ultimately the number one vehicle is of course the Z-Type, still there at the very top of the Sports Classics class in terms of raceable vehicles since 2013. At this point, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already for regular lap time and top speed testing videos and updates when new cars are released, and check out other classes in the playlist. Back in 2013, this always had the highest top speed. It was quicker than the Adder back then as well, but nobody realised it. Everyone thought the Adder had the highest top speed. The Z-Type has always been the king for the Sports Classics class with 126.3 miles per hour. That's quicker than a lot of supercars, and it's just an absolute monster in terms of top speed. A great vehicle. And again, a similar sort of thing as to what I was saying with the Monroe, for example. It can't turn quite as well, but the Z-Type certainly has a little bit more about it in terms of its cornering ability. It's a little bit big, so that's what makes it so bulky, and obviously it can't hold a candle to the newer breed of Sports Classics cars, but you know, it's still a very good vehicle, and this is why it was always so powerful when it comes to Sports Classics races back in the day, whether it was 2013 or, you know, even later on the right track. It could still at least compete against something like the Sterling GT, which dominated it in most other areas. If there were enough straights, it would still be able to do well. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Sports Classics class. We've seen it for lap time and for top speed. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful. Consider supporting on Patreon or become a YouTube member if you want to get testing results early. And remember to read the description for more info, comment with your thoughts, like the video if you enjoyed or found it helpful, and subscribe for more. Thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.